bringing Gator Nation a different Gator great every episode.
This is Jabari Gaffney, and you're listening to the All for the Gators podcast.
Hey, I'm Rita Anthony.
This is Kewan Ratliff.
Hey, I'm Carlos Alvarez.
This is Jeff Dempsey.
This is Ricky the Rocket Natil.
This is Brandon James.
This is Cedric Faison, a.k.a. C4.
This is Taylor Jacobs. Go Gators.
This is University of Florida Gator great Lewis Oliver. Lock us in, guys.
Hey, I'm Earl Everett. If you're not a Gator, you're Gator baby.
Only Gators get out alive.
Hello, this is Eric Rick. Go Gators.
Hi, this is Ernest Graham.
This is Chris Doring.
This is Jaden Ball.
Hey, this is Trace Armstrong.
This is Brad Culpepper, and you're listening to Best Podcast on the Air.
Hey, guys, this is Jarvis Moss.
You're either all for the Gators or you're not.
Go Gators.
You rocking with Lito Shepherd, and we're all for the Gators podcast, man. Top notch.
And now, your Gator alumni hosts, John, Andy, and Sid.
And we're back with another edition of the All for the Gators podcast.
Oh, yeah. Good to be back.
Yes, gentlemen. Somber news that sort of transcends all American culture, if you will. I know this is a sports podcast, but you got to bring it up, right? Sid's wearing the shirt. You can't see him, but he's wearing the shirt.
33 years old. Still fits, kind of.
Ozzy Osbourne, deceased at 76, a few weeks after performing his final concert, Black Sabbath. Man, how are you feeling about that, Sid? Sid's the resident 80s metalhead, so there's nothing, there's no one that's going to give you a more credible statement on this than Sid. Sid, go ahead.
Well, I got a gambit of emotions. I mean, first of all, I kind of figured he and Keith Richards were going to outlive everybody, so, his time has come, but it kind of just feels like, your favorite crazy uncle just passed away, It's like he's always been around and, and for all the shtick about him being the Prince of Darkness and biting bats, like the final thing that he did was raise nearly $200 million for Children's Hospital and for Parkinson's research. So, the Prince of Darkness definitely had a big heart too. So, and, countless bands since Black Sabbath's first album, 55-ish years ago already, sheesh, we're old. Say that's the impetus for the sound that came, so like all those bands that we like and don't like, they all took something from Sabbath and Ozzy, and he's the godfather. And, I guess it'd be more tragic if it was someone else in the 28-year-old club. The dude definitely lived a long, full life, and, he even became, something new for the TV younger star. Kids.
Yeah,
exactly. The Osbournes, like there's people who don't even know his songs, just know him as the crazy guy yelling for Sharon to bring him the remote and stuff.
He didn't even seem to be doing good back then.
No. I mean,
true.
I saw him last 8 years ago, and he wasn't diagnosed as Parkinson's yet, but I mean, you kind of could see he was not doing well. And I did have tickets for what was supposed to be his final tour, and ultimately I think he had some sort of back surgery, and it was postponed, and then ultimately it was canceled. So the last time really was the last time.
Well, that's the thing. Not only his own music, but then the whole Ozfest, man. How many great bands did we see at Ozfest?
Before Ozfest, even though the year No More Tears came out, the next year I saw him for the No More Tours tour, and then the summer after that I saw him for the Retirement Sucks tour, and then the year after that he started Ozfest, which is just like the most successful festival of all time. So,
all right, before all our Gator Nation listeners are signed off here because they don't.
Sorry.
They're not tuning into an 80s hair metal podcast.
No.
I know Andy was a fan of Ozzy, too.
Yep. So
let's go real quick. Favorite Ozzy song? Andy? Ozzy or Sabbath?
Oh, man.
Or a collab?
Man, I don't know if I have a favorite.
All right, Sid?
NIB. Easy.
Ooh.
Greatest riff. Love it.
Okay. That's a good one.
Yeah.
What are you thinking, Andy? Perry Mason?
Ooh, yikes.
I did like that album, actually.
Yeah.
That was a good album. You're going to laugh because you'll remember it when I say it, John. One of the songs by him I did actually like a lot was, oh God, I just lost it in my head.
Shot in the Dark?
Shot in the Dark.
Yes.
Shot in the Dark.
On the Ultimate Sin album. Great one.
Shot in the Dark, yeah.
That's a good one. I gained to respect and actually like his older stuff the older I got. I mean, I used to make fun of you for Shot in the Dark in college. I wasn't that into it. I always respected him for what he accomplished and paved the way,
I love
through the bands.
Old Sabbath.
But being in radio, a rock radio DJ for so many years, that last, I think it was his last hit, or at least the last hit I was in rock radio for, was that Scream song. What was that called? Gonna Make You Scream or something like that?
Yeah.
No,
I haven't
that was
really
Michael
been
Jackson.
too keen on the more recent stuff.
No, not the Michael Janet collab. All right, forget. Okay, let's go. R.I.P. Ozzy. We're putting up the horns for you.
Yes, rest in peace, Ozzy. Thank you. So, getting back to what we were doing here, what we got going on, not related to the Prince of Darkness passing.
Well, gentlemen, for 3 years now, we've brought Gator Nation some of the most iconic Gators to ever roam the swamp on the gridiron. But today, we broaden our horizons. That's right, to the baseball diamond. Now, we couldn't just say, okay, we're going to start featuring Gator Baseball unless we do it right, by having on one of the most decorated and accomplished Gators to ever swing a bat. And that's exactly what we've done. Our guest today came out of Cape Coral, where at Mariner High he set career marks for hits, homers, and RBI on his way to becoming first-team All-State and playing in the Aflac All-American game in 2008. He'd forego signing with the A's after being drafted in 2009 to become a Florida Gator and play for a young Kevin O'Sullivan. As a Gator, he would lead the team to 3 straight College World Series appearances while putting up the best team winning percentage of any 3-year stretch in Gator baseball history. He'd go on to a nice 11-year MLB career with the Mariners, Rays, and Guardians. Gator Nation, I give you 3-time All-SEC, 3-time All-American, 2011 SEC Player of the Year, 2012 Baseball America Player of the Year, SEC Champion, and UF Athletics Hall of Famer with number 3 on his chest in the orange and blue, Mr. Michael Corsi Zunino.
All right.
I appreciate you having me, guys.
Man, so cool to have you on, Mike. When we discussed having some baseball players on, we all wanted to start with you. And so thank you for taking the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I appreciate it. There's been some greats that have worn this uniform. So, that's a great honor. I appreciate that.
Before we start about your baseball career, you're Italian. I'm Italian. Spano, Zunino, right? Your dad played pro baseball in Italy, and your mom played for the Italian national softball team. So are you a first-generation Italian-American?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yeah, my mom came over when she met my dad in Italy. And my dad's from the Bay Area. He played at Cal, played a short stint in the minor leagues with the Yankees, and then went overseas and played in Italy. And that's where they met. They came back over here to the States. My dad's been in pro ball on the scouting side for I'll shortchange him in 25 plus years. And so that's sort of where the baseball roots sort of dug in there.
What part of Italy?
She's from Bologna, Italy, so northern Italy.
Okay, we're from Messina, Sicily.
Okay.
So here's the question, Mike. What's your favorite Italian restaurant in Gainesville when you were there? Or did you have one?
You know what? I mean, the way everything's changed now, but I think then, I had a buddy of mine that went, came up here and went to school, and he was working at Paisanos, and we would sneak in there, as much as we could, especially when he was working, because he would help us out there. There wasn't much Italian food on the college baseball player budget. So
makes sense.
Yeah, we weren't eating out too much.
Did you have the pepperoni rolls from Paisanos?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they were pretty good. Yeah.
All right, back to baseball. Listen, I'm sure you were swinging the bat pretty early with kind of the history that you guys just talked about with your parents in the game. Assume you were in the locker rooms. At what age do you kind of remember really starting to get into playing baseball?
I mean, for me, I think, I always go back to, my Little League days. I mean, I think in how everything's changing in this day and age, there's so much travel ball, and I got into that too. It was sort of picking up probably when I was, towards the end, like 11 or 12 years old in Little League. But, my fondest memories are, playing with the kids in, my community, the kids that I went to school with, playing from, machine pitch up to, majors and, playing all-stars. I mean, that's when you really sort of find your first, love for the game, understanding, how the game should be played. And there's a lot of kids that I played with there that, I went to high school with that I'm still in contact with and good friends with. So I think when you look down at the roots, and I think that's what's so cool about baseball is the relationships made along the way. But those are some of my earliest and most fond memories of, playing this game.
Did you get to play in the Cooperstown tournament that the 12-year-olds playing?
No, I never did. I mean, our biggest one, we went up to, we'd go up to Disney and played at the Wide World of Sports. I never got the opportunity to do it. I had some buddies that did. They loved it. I'm up here now in the Gainesville area now, and, knowing some guys that coach some of these travel ball teams and, their opportunities to go there, it's just one of the coolest areas that I could imagine going and playing some baseball at.
Yeah, my son played, growing up, and he's 20 now, and so he's hung up the cleats. But when he talks about baseball, that's the one he still talks about, was the Cooperstown tournament. So very cool.
He doesn't talk about the Grand Slam on Senior Day?
That's the other one. He does talk about the Grand Slam on Senior Day.
That was so cool.
But I'll tell a quick story. So when we went to Cooperstown, the week we got was included Father's Day weekend. So on Father's Day, he hit 2 home runs. So every Father's Day, he reminds me, remember, Dad, I hit 2 home runs for you in Cooperstown on Father's Day. So
that is awesome.
That's the one that comes up. Yeah, pretty cool.
So how did you wind up in Southwest Florida? And what was your favorite baseball team growing up there?
Oh, so my dad, he was a scout he started with the Expos, and then they moved down to Southwest Florida. He was working with the Marlins. And he was scouting with them. So my earliest memories of watching and rooting for a team were, back then the Florida Marlins.
Sure.
Edgar Renteria, Jeff Conine, Craig Counsell, Charles Johnson.
Yeah, we lived in South Florida then.
Yeah, Gary Sheffield. So as a young player, that was the closest team to us. And obviously with my dad working for him, I came up like most kids probably playing shortstop. So I'd be lying if it wasn't, I was trying to watch Derek Jeter and, Nomar Garcia-Parra and Alex Rodriguez.
The big three, yes.
And the other thing too was my brother-in-law, he's a huge Cubs fan, but I think any kid, my age, when you're going through there, I'd get home from school. You could catch the Cubs on WGN, almost every day. So,
Dunston.
Those were just my early memories of just, watching a game. And obviously the coverage and stuff wasn't as big as it is now. So, you were just watching what you could get then. And that's when I feel like those guys and, we're really on pedestals because, now there's so much coverage. But, I remember just watching all those guys and just being completely in awe on what they were doing.
You mentioned that you played shortstop, and of course we know you as a catcher. So I was going to ask, because your mom was a catcher too, right? So was she helping you with your pop time and blocking and all that catcher stuff?
No, not in that way. We actually had a kid. I was 10 years old in Little League, and we had a 12-year-old. Ended up playing high school with this kid too. I believe he actually moved up to the Gainesville area. I haven't talked to him in a couple of years, but he could just bring it on the hill, and we had nobody that could catch him. And I was like, a 10-year-old, I was like, I'll throw on the gear and try it. I don't care. Like, what's the worst that can happen? And I got back there, and I was hooked. And more of the transition, would, catch a lot in these tournaments, would still play shortstop some. Actually played shortstop my freshman year of high school. We had our catcher was going to FGCU. So I played shortstop my freshman year of high school, and then the transition to catching, full-time was right around my sophomore year of high school.
Well, speaking of catchers, while we're talking about it, there's a catcher having a nice season this year in the majors for the Mariners. Cal Raleigh's having himself quite the year. He's leading the American League in home runs at this time, and he just won the Derby. Any thoughts on the year he's having?
Yeah, we just can't mention what school he went to, but it's
no, absolutely not. No, absolutely
not. No, it is unbelievable to watch. I'm pretty sure he was drafted before I got traded over to Tampa in that offseason. But, man, what he was doing, I think everybody looks at that. But, the guy won the Platinum Glove the year before. Right. He's doing it all. I don't think people understand. Let alone catching and hitting in the big leagues. The guy's a switch hitter. He's doing double the work, double the prep. He's catching at an extremely high level. It's just been phenomenal to watch. I went there and I thought, once I'm done – playing, like, man, I put so much time and energy. There's no way I'm going to watch games. I catch myself, late night putting the Mariners games on. Dan Wilson now is the manager over there, and he was coming in as the roving catching guy every now and then. And, we developed a cool bond. So it's cool to see that team have success, those players have success, that you've had a chance to meet and, sort of see them come up through the ranks. And I think that's the coolest part about this game. As I got older in my career, seeing guys that, came in on signing day, and next thing you know, you're playing with them a few years later down the road and just seeing their journey come full circle. So, there's never a moment where I lose perspective in how hard this game is, and it still is, and it's only getting harder. And so what these guys are doing, and some of the best in the game is unbelievable to watch.
You had some pretty good pop when you were playing too. Did you ever do any sort of home run derby, or how close were you to considering, or were you ever offered, or how does that even work?
No, the only one I did one in high school. I won it. I did one in high school as a senior. But no, you know what? I was really hoping in 2021. I was fortunate enough to make the All-Star team.
Right.
But man, if they came across and they needed somebody else, I would have been waving a giant flag to try to get their attention. Because I think as any player and any kid growing up, I mean, what's cooler than doing that? Well, what's the worst that can happen in something like that? But I mean, it just looks like an absolute blast. So to see guys do that, and like I said, I grew up watching it. I mean, you go back to some of those early 2000
Berman,
derby.
back, gone. Yep.
And that's what really got you hooked on it. And
Griffey.
Well, of course, McGuire and Sosa hitting those monster shots didn't hurt either.
Griffey's my favorite.
I remember doing that. I remember. I'll throw names out there, but I remember watching Jeremy Burnitz was in a bunch of them.
Yeah.
It's just all these guys. Like I said, I was a big fan and tried to soak it in as much as I could. Like I said, the coverage wasn't as deep as it is now, but I would have hopped all over any opportunity to be able to do that. But it was really cool. I was able to take my oldest Rhett on the field during that time in Colorado, and he was able to sit there and watch it and see it on field level. And it is fun to watch and fun to see the best in the world hit a baseball. We were in Colorado when it happened, so those balls were jumping.
Yeah.
But it's such a cool experience.
So after high school, you get drafted by the A's in the 29th round, and you chose to go to college over the pros at that point. What went behind that decision? Did you feel like
I wasn't offered a penny? That's what went into the decision. Okay. I laugh when people say that because they ask like, what made it? To clarify, I was getting recruited early on by Sully when he was at Clemson, and then he came over to Florida and continued my recruitment. And I grew up a Gator fan, so it was one of those things where it was a no-brainer. Once he came over there and offered me, I hopped all over that. And there was some discussions of was there a dollar amount, and as the rounds got later, and it seemed a little bit less likely that there was going to be a dollar amount met. It made my decision really easy. And I tell people all the time, it was the best thing in my baseball career that could ever happen to me. And it had nothing to do with the success that happened. It just had to do with the maturation process. It's you go to college and you get first top-notch, first level training, diet, you get on a structure. We're out there doing, that was Sully's third year. So, he was still trying to run some guys off that team. So we had 5 a.m. runs, we had, our 6:30 lifts, and then we'd come in and have our practices, so that grind of, going into my freshman year really built a foundation of how to work and what needed to be done to be successful.
Were there any other schools that were recruiting you? I know you said Sully was recruiting you at Clemson before he went to Florida. Was it pretty much Sully in Florida, or did you have anything else that you were thinking about?
No, I was lucky enough. I had a pretty good selection. LSU, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas. There was. I couldn't have asked for an opportunity to do that, but. I came to Florida. I was a fan. I did my official visit there. We played LSU at home Tebow went over the top. It was a tip pass.
Oh, yeah.
Percy Harvin caught it and took it to the house. And I was on the sidelines, and I remember feeling the ground of the swamp shake, and I was like, I mean, you could just give me the papers now to sign. I'm good, man. This is
easy recruitment.
It is pretty tough. Oh man,
That's funny. You don't think about the football team getting recruits for other sports, but I guess it happens too. I mean, you grew up a Gator fan, but that's like icing on the cake.
Yeah, I think when you look at it, I mean, and then you're coming off. I mean, that visit was 2009. My official would have been either 2009 or 2008. I mean, so you're talking about what the basketball team was doing.
Perfect time to be there. All the titles.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, you went in there, and then but that's sort of the mantra. When you look at that class that came in for Sully in 2000, I guess you call it the 2009 class, right? But I mean Brian Johnson, Nolan Fontana, Paco Rodriguez, all these guys coming in. We were all projected. I mean, I know that's a big word, but projected to get drafted in decent rounds and, probably go play pro ball. And we all end up at Florida. And when you see the success going everywhere else, as, a group of freshmen, we're like, well, let's try to do it here too. And it was sort of the mentality we took. And I think that my freshman year in 2010, I think we started something like, it was pretty crazy. I think we were starting like seven freshmen to start the season, including some pitchers. So, I mean, it was a pretty cool time to be there. I think looking back, we were probably pretty naive about how hard it was going to be, but it was really, really cool to be a part of.
You mentioned coming into town in 2010, and that must be great having so many young players getting that experience. So clearly led to your success down the road. But did you know that the catcher position was yours, or did you have to beat someone out to get it? And did you expect to play so soon and play well so soon?
I was, Sully, when I came in, I was, I felt pretty confident defensively, when I got up there and started catching the first bullpens of these guys that, are coming from the Miamis and the, Miamis and Orlandos and Tampas. And these guys are playing high school guys that are throwing in the mid-90s already. And I was like, man, I got some serious catching up to do. We had no one in our area, touching 90. So, but I was told by Sully, when you come in, I'm giving you every opportunity to start, to earn a starting job. And, for me, that's all I wanted to hear. And then, it's go time from there. Let's get to work. Let's hone up the pitching staff. What do we like to do here? There's a big change. I mean, you're learning, it's the first time you're really getting in and you're learning, sign sets with the runner on second. You're learning, where you want certain pitches, how you want to combo pitches. I'm learning a lot from Sully, trying to, shore up that. And then, I was in the Springs dorm and we had a keypad to get in the cage. And, if I couldn't sleep or I was up, I would just go in and put the punch code in and go hit balls until 11, 12 o'clock at night and just have the velo machine up because I knew, I had enough to do. I mean, it was, it was just sort of the hand I was dealt and where I was playing, which wasn't a bad baseball area, but it didn't have the talent that I saw came into UF, and I knew that was all across the SEC.
So you started 51 games that year, all but one at catcher. I think you DH'd one game. You have 9 homers, 41 RBIs. You get selected to Baseball America's freshman All-American team and SEC's all-freshman team. And I know you just listed off a couple things you had to work on, and you mentioned the velo you were facing there. What would you say was your biggest adjustment you had to make to achieve that success at the next level?
This will go back. So I got hit in the thumb, my right thumb, and ended up fracturing my right knuckle in my thumb. I forget the guy's name from Florida State, but we were playing at home. I get hit there, and just like everything else, I don't want to come off the field. I'm a freshman. I earned a starting spot. I was not going to lose playing time, so I played through that a little bit, and it really, affected my hitting some. And I went and I, was trying to find out ways, to get padding in there and do stuff like that. Well, then 2 weeks later, Paco Rodriguez from the left side just got this nasty cutter. And, I didn't know what a cutter was till then. So I did that. He ended up dislocating my left thumb on a pitch. I got thumbed on it really bad.
Oh.
He dislocated my left thumb. I had him pop it back into place. I finished the inning. Went back out, started throbbing on me. Went to go lay down a bunt because they were playing me back. It was Georgia. They were playing me back, so I was like, maybe I could just sneak a bunt in. There's no way I could swing. I ended up bunting, but the way I held the bat, I tried to keep my thumb off of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to go bunt. The ricochet of the bat went into my thumb. It popped out of place. It popped out of place again. I'm running down first base, down to first base. My thumb's pointing all different directions. The next game was the only game I didn't start, and that was a game Ben McMahon actually hit a walk-off home run that game, which was awesome. He was a great guy to have. I mean, he was a tremendous baseball player, but really taught me a lot. You know, he could have been very bitter about me coming in and starting, but he was just an awesome guy, always helped me prepare. He came in, did that. And then Sully called me in the office, and he knew I was banged up. He knew I wasn't swinging the bat well, and he said, as long as you handle this pitching staff, you're going to play. He's like, just take a deep breath. If you catch and play defense and handle this pitching staff, you're going to play. And honestly, I tell him that to this day, that vote of confidence, you know, to a 19-year-old kid that's, you know, treading water, it felt like at times in the SEC. And I went in there and I just, you know, went back to work, tried to figure out something to work with my swing. I worked with Craig Bell, who, you know, I haven't been able to tell him personally, you know, with everything, but he really transformed my career in talking about hitting and backspinning a baseball and getting into proper positions to hit. And probably from that halfway point or whenever that moment was to the College World Series, I felt really good. And then by the time I came back my sophomore year, I felt like I had a really, really good foundation to build off of. And I mean, it just sort of took off from there. And, you know, it sort of took those pieces of adversity to sort of get there and the right people to say the right things at the right time. And, you know, it really was something that helped me take off as a player.
Your first home run at the college level was a solo shot against Florida State. Gotta love that. Do you remember anything about that one?
Yeah, I believe that was at Steinbrenner Field in Tampa.
Nice.
It was I don't know if they did it my sophomore year or they stopped after that, but it was the Florida 4. And, I remember that one pretty well. It was either center or left center. That was sort of just like a, you know, cloud nine moment. All right, you know, now you know, you broke the ice in college. Let's get it going. But, no, it's funny because I went back there to do something with the Rays the other day, and it was one I out of all the spring training games I played with the Rays, I didn't make it back up to Steinbrenner Field. So it was like it may have been the first time I set foot back into that place since that happened.
Wow.
Do you remember what your longest home run was, whether it was college or pro?
Yeah, I hit one in the pros.
You had a few of them. Pretty good.
Yeah, there was one. I hit one in Seattle. I think it was against Alex Cobb. I hit one that I got it up to like 2 or 3 rows from the top in Safeco. That
wow.
I hit that one really well. Maybe my longest one at Florida, but one of my favorites. I hit one against LSU at Alex Box Stadium that we were down. Golly, we may have been down 2-0 in the top of the ninth. Yeah, it was the top of the ninth, and it was a Friday night. I don't know. It wasn't Gosman pitching, but then they brought in their closer, Mel Ott, who was all SEC, all American the year before. And I got into like an 8 or 9 pitch at bat. And I hit one over the scoreboard there to tie it up on a Friday night game. And then we ended up scoring 2 or 3 more runs that inning. And that was probably, I mean, when you go back and like, you know, I get, you know, the hair will stand up on my arms now because that place was rocking. And that was my sophomore year and it just went dead silent. And it was like one of those like, all right, like we can hang here, you know, that was our first bit of like, that was the first, we got to the College World Series the year before. We lost to Ballard and UCLA, and then we lost to Florida State. We went 2-0. So we were like, all right, how do we bounce back? And LSU was a big series for us on the road, and I think we really started building momentum up. We swept the series against LSU, and then we sort of really took off from there.
Let's talk about that first year. You mentioned how it was kind of unusual to have so many young guys getting all that run. Gators have a great season, 47-17, win the SEC. Can you kind of feel it building as all you young guys got all that opportunity?
I mean, I definitely think, the confidence was growing with the young guys. We end up getting some guys back that stayed for their senior year going into our sophomore year that really helped us. And I think that was the big key. I think we had a really good foundation, and it's amazing when you look at the arms that were pit like that. Like I still look back at it my freshman year and I don't think Anthony DeSclafani pitched that much for us. And you see what he's doing in the major leagues now.
He's still pitching.
He's still doing it. Yeah. And it's, and like you start looking at the names and some of the stuff that happens and, everyone, hits the ground running at different times. And it wasn't for a lack of talent that he had. But I think you start looking at that. We started getting some arms back. We were getting all of our bats back. We knew we had one more year with Preston Tucker coming back. So we're like, all right, the middle, our first 6 or so spots were really solid. Josh Adams ended up coming back. So we were like, all right, we're going to be in a spot where we're returning our core. We were returning everybody up the middle. Two of our arms in the rotation. It may have been 3, but at least 2 of our arms. I know Carson Winston ended up starting towards my sophomore year. So I mean, we knew we were returning guys back into the bullpen was shirt up. So yeah, we felt good going into it. But like I said, that was only Sully's 4th year. So it was right. There was still some guys that he was trying to maybe get out of there so you can open up scholarship spots and get other guys in, and it's a different animal than it is now. But I mean, he was still trying, you still want your guys in there. And with the recruiter Sully is, I mean, we took the foot off the gas a little bit, going in from the training standpoint, and we focused on, really staying healthy. But most of the young guys, we got strong enough and knew we could hang. And then, it was a pretty big confidence boost making it to the World Series. We sort of had that bad taste in our mouth going 2 and out. And yeah, it was one of those where some guys went and played summer ball, and then we came back and we were just ready to go.
Let's talk about you in 2011, your sophomore year. You heal up, you get that coaching, and I guess those late night sessions in the cages help out a little bit because your batting average jumps over 100 points to 371. You have 19 homers, almost 70 RBIs. Talk about how you were feeling at the dish, all healed up that season.
Yeah, like I said, I felt like the basics. I felt like mechanically, it's so different now. I mean, you can go in the cages now, and I pop in there and try to help where I can, but there's so much. There's so much information now, and there's so much talk. Everyone's got private hitting coaches, and I love David Wright's swing, and I'm like, all right, like what can I do to emulate that a little bit? So I would do that, and I was still trying to iron stuff out, but my biggest thing was I ended up getting in there and having a conversation with a couple of our pitchers. We were just sitting there. We had a long scrimmage day. Like when we would be in the fall, it was like you would never bat an eye at having like a 13 or 14 inning scrimmage on some days, just because you're trying to get certain guys to throw, you're trying to get at bats.
Sure.
You're limited on your windows. So you would have some time. So I would go down and I would warm guys up in the bullpen if I wasn't doing stuff. And I was sitting down there and I was talking to some guys, and they were just like, they were sort of talking to me. It was the first time anyone really was like asking about like a hitter's approach. And I was like, early on, I'm looking for, a fastball down the middle. Like, how simple can it get? And, then, I would shift into zone hitting, and they're like, well, like what zone? I was like, well, if I fall behind, I'll look for something, out over the plate, away from me, thinking guys are going to stay away. And they're like, well, don't look like too small of a spot. He's like, we don't hit our spots all the time. And that one line, and I mean, it was, golly, I'm pretty sure it was Nick Mirande and somebody else I was talking to. And I was like, really? I was like, you don't, and they're like, no chance. So that was the first time it opened my eyes of like, okay, like, let's not be too fine. Like I'm not going to pigeonhole myself looking for like one pitch in one spot. So I sort of like tweaked my mental approach, and that was my game changer. I mean, I could have like the worst round in BP of my life, and I would leave the shell and be like, man, I'm going to go get 2 hits today. Like I'm just going to stick to my approach. I don't care how my swing feels. And I just felt so mentally locked in and trusted in my approach that I felt like probably days, that I didn't have my best swing, I gave myself a chance. And I feel like that's, what it's all about in this game.
Well, the baseball world certainly notices the year you have that year, SEC Player of the Year, first team All-American. And I want to talk a little bit about behind the dish. You get selected to the SEC All-Defensive Team. How much work were you putting in, on defense? Was that a lot of effort? Was it more natural for you?
So my freshman year, we didn't really have anybody like solely working with the catchers. So it was a little bit more trial and error, like self-taught, like prepping for the game. And then Buddy Monroe came in and he was helping. And then he really was able to help me fine-tune my pregame routine, fine-tune, some stuff on the defensive side. He came back as the student coach, and it helped tremendously. I mean, he was coming straight out of the minor leagues. He had caught for, at Clemson with Sully, then came over here, so he knew the ropes of what it took. And, I was able to have somebody in my corner to bounce stuff off of. This is well before the day and age of, being able to flick on, social media and, everyone's an expert in giving catching drills and, what guys should do. You had the guys that you would watch, like I would watch, the Buster Posies and the guys that were doing it like that. You'd obviously watch, Yadier Molina or, before then, Pudge. You would watch these guys, but there was no one ever breaking down what they were doing and why it worked. So having like somebody else there that just came out of the minor leagues that had, knowledge of the position, understood it, it really helped my growth process of, studying that side of the ball. And then I got infatuated with that. Then, come my junior year was the same thing. And then when I got into pro ball, receiving and all that stuff came in. And then, I could really dive into that even more.
You mentioned the experts that are out there. My son, who's 9, is playing. He's a catcher. He loves it. He's a little guy, but he's scrappy and he's tough. And he's going to start actually playing his first season of travel ball coming up this season. But there's a million experts on Instagram with all these unorthodox training processes or whatever you want to call it. And it's hard to really filter them. I saw somebody post a clip of Mike Matheny, and it was an old video, and he was in the dugout, the catcher for the Cardinals in the 90s, I think.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Later a manager,
and he was
too,
talking
if I
about
correctly.
Just a couple of his techniques. And that one video made so much more sense to me to teach to my son than literally the 500 I probably saw last weekend, going just swiping them on Instagram. So there's so much out there. How do you even know, what's really beneficial for a young player today?
Right. I wish I had, the answer to that because, I mean, as we get farther along, I'm sure in this conversation we'll get to when I got to the big leagues, but I wish I kept my innocence a little bit more. My first year in the big leagues, when I got called up and Raul Ibanez and Jason Bay and all these guys are on the Mariners, and I grew up watching them, and these guys are in their late 30s, early 40s, and I would go in the film room and I would watch them study their swing. And I wish I never did that. I'm glad I did. I would never not show that I wanted to learn about it. But I was more of a feel hitter. But I'm more of a student of catching. But yeah, it's crazy. I went in there and it would just flood my mind with hitting stuff. And I'm not saying that's the reason for some of the lack of production offensively, but there was definitely a time where I strayed from what I was doing at Florida in the major leagues as I reflect on my career. And now when I try to talk to young players and coaches, I try to do the same thing. I'm a big believer in, every player is built differently. I didn't come up catching the same way. If you go watch, what I was doing at Florida, I had a very big relax recoil into my body, and I was a little bit more of a stab and stick guy. And then when I got into the minor leagues, I had a guy teach me how to, his terminology was like, turn the doorknob, use the momentum of the ball to use your wrist to turn the ball up. And then I ended up watching other guys that, the AJ Przinsky's and the Tyler Flowers were the very straight arm. That never worked for me. I ended up having a veteran catcher in John Buck come into Seattle, and he was showing me stuff that he did and trying to catch the ball deep and where he felt like his strength was. And that was what stuck with me. And it made the most sense, and how my setup was, how my body was built, where, I got a bigger upper body, but, if for example, if I extend my arm, straight forward, I'm a lot weaker than if I was keeping my arm at a 90-degree angle and using my bicep, my tricep, my delt, my scap, using all these bigger muscles. So I learned that as I went on. And do I recommend that way to a lot of catchers now? I do, because a lot of these younger players, they're not strong enough now to go watch guys like, JT Real Muto that's a little bit longer with his glove hand and away from his body. So there's so many things that you can watch, and, I tried them all, and I was fortunate enough to be able to do it at a high level, and it worked for me. And I can only talk about what worked and didn't work and why I think that to other guys. But I also think too that, every player is built differently, and it's going to adapt player to player. And I think as a coach, like you said with Matheny, there's got to be, you have to have different tools in your bag to bring to that player. And if one way doesn't work, there's no cookie cutter way. You got to be able to bring different aspects and different ideas and different techniques to that player to see if what sticks and if anything will work for them.
Makes sense.
So getting back to your second year here, Gators improved to 53-19, win the SEC title again, although this time they share it, and you make it to the College World Series championship versus South Carolina, but finish number 2. Obviously, we know you are one of the few rare players who've been to the College World Series and the World Series. That's pretty awesome. And you have a pretty heck of a good run there. You hit 316 in the World Series and hit your 19th homer, which tied the UF single-season home run mark by a catcher. What do you remember about that experience and being so close to the championship then?
Gosh, I just knew that we had such a better team than South Carolina. It's hard to say it, and it. Just so many things that, it's the beauty about baseball. There was so many things that just didn't go our way. Some amazing plays made by South Carolina. I would say that they were the much more relaxed team. They had won it the year before, and they came in, Coach Tanner over there. I mean, he had them. I mean, they were doing home run derbies in their batting practices. It was sort of like one of those where it was like, you just take all the chains off and let the guys go play. And I don't think that going back there was any like decision that was like, oh, this didn't happen. But I just felt like there was a little bit of like, we sort of felt the pressure to win because we knew how good we were, instead of just, taking the chains off and saying, hey, just go play. Like, you guys did everything you needed to this point. Mm-hmm. Like, just go be the team who you are. I mean, when you go look at that year, I mean, we beat, Taylor Youngman, I think it was, at Texas. He was a number 1 overall pick. We beat Sonny Gray, came back, played Vanderbilt again, beat them, and we had 4 days off until we played in the finals. I mean, the gauntlet of what we went through to get there. Mm-hmm. I mean, we went through 2 first-round draft picks to get there, and then it just sort of like we sort of we sort of took that aggression away. Like I think, we had beat South Carolina. We beat Michael Roth at home that year, I believe. It was one of those things where I think we went in there feeling like we should do that, put a little bit of pressure on it instead of just, having that don't hold anything back mentality and just go. And, it was a great series. A couple of things that didn't go our way. I still can recount some of those moments. And, it's one of those things where you look back and you're like, man, I wonder what it would be like to be on the other side of that coin.
Let's move on to your senior year, 2012. Gators are strong again, but don't make it back to the World Series that year. But you take home the UF Triple Crown, right? You lead the team in batting over 300 again, 322, another 19 homers, 67 RBIs. But you also get the Triple Crown of awards. Besides being consensus first-team All-American, which is you were the first Gator catcher to be voted first-team All-American twice. The 3 awards, you win the Dick Hauser Trophy, right, the best college baseball player, Golden Spikes Award, best amateur player, and the Johnny Bench Award, best college catcher. So you must have been feeling really good about the next MLB draft coming up.
Man, yeah. You know what? It was that was a whirlwind. I knew I had a good year. It was one of those funny things. Like my average went down 40 points or so, but my home runs and RBIs were identical.
Yeah.
So it was like one of those where I was like, I knew we did that. I had played solid. Yeah, I mean, blessed enough to win all those awards. I think looking back, I think as like a young kid then, I sort of had my blinders on. Like I'll admit, I really only cared about winning. I didn't really think about any of the other accolades. I didn't really think about the draft. That sophomore year, losing, it left a bad taste in everybody's mouth. And I just put my blinders on, went back to work and, fortunate to have another good year collecting all those. And I remember, the draft, and then it was just like, then it was a whirlwind. It was, I knew that there was 2 high school kids that were going to go, Carlos Correa and Byron Buxton.
Yep.
And, I knew if those two guys went, I had a chance of going. Kevin Gosman was there, Gray from Oklahoma, John Gray maybe. So there was a couple of teams that were interested in some arms too. So I knew if those 2 went, I had a chance of going to Seattle. If not, I knew it may fall back a little bit more. But I never really. It sounds crazy, and maybe because it was the pre-social. I mean, I guess it wasn't pre-social media. Like there was Facebook, and I think Twitter was out. We couldn't have it at Florida, so there was like Facebook and Twitter. So I mean, you really had no idea, like unless you were like subscribing to like Baseball America or anything, like what really was like in the cards with anything. So I just felt like it was best to sort of put the blinders on and continue to work. And next thing you know, your head pops up after the end of the year, and you're like, okay, like this is really going to happen.
I think we're going to move on to your pro career here just in just a second, but I did have a question regarding Sully, right? You've mentioned Sully several times as we've been talking to you. What were some of the biggest lessons you learned from Sully, and how did he kind of prepare you for the next level?
Yeah, so I mean, I was fortunate enough for him to be a former catcher too. One of my biggest things that I'm extremely grateful for is that he gave me the ability to start calling my own game in my sophomore year. He gave me a little bit of a leash freshman year. Then by sophomore year, we were 50-50-ish. And then, by my junior year, like he gave me the reins unless there was a certain situation he wanted something. I mean, you guys know Sully. He's fiery. So there would be times where, I would call a pitch and the guy would get a hit or something, and he would meet me at the top step, and they weren't necessarily gentle conversations. We're both competitors, pretty fiery competitors. So we would go there and he would question it, and as any catcher, that's what I took pride in. He would say something, but I learned I had reasons of why I called it, and he made me much more aware of how to call a game, why I'm calling it. So then when that happened and I could, we'll call it respond back saying, this is why I did it. he respected it, and he knew that it wasn't going in, like, it wasn't just, throwing something down and praying for the best, and that really helped me grow as a catcher. And, like I said, I was sort of on the fast track going into the major leagues, and I think it was like close to a year after I got drafted. And man, I'll tell you what, if he didn't give me that opportunity to really learn how to do that and read swings and know my pitcher's strengths, I mean, it would have been an even tougher learning curve at that level.
Well, when you left UF, you were in the top 10 and still are in most major categories, and some of them top 5. So looking back on your Gator career, the wins, the hits, the homers, the awards, what are you most proud of?
I think in total, it was a group effort to get the program where it got to, and and obviously,
sure,
Sully's done a great job of keeping that standard. But I feel like Sully got his guys in there early on, and I think we sort of set a tone of what we think Florida baseball should be. And I think seeing the championship in, what was that, 2017?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to see that come full circle for Sully, but to know that there is a group of guys that sort of help put those roots down is probably the biggest, is the most satisfying thing of it all. The personal accolades, I mean, it's one of those things where it's amazing. Now it seems to be a piece of metal sitting on a desk next to me collecting dust. But you don't really go back. I'm sure a lot of people say you don't really go back and say, oh man, I can't believe I did this. It always comes down to the group. The stories
Mm-hmm.
always come down to other individuals that were there, that were in the trenches with you, that were in the grind, that were up at 5 a.m. Maybe not keeping breakfast down in the weight room, but we were putting our work in, and we were trying to build to something, naturally to try to win a national championship, but to elevate a program and to see it continue to do that and ultimately, reach that destination was really fulfilling. And, it's really cool to see Sully's tenure and what he's done there and has continued to do, everyone, hopefully that's played through this program feels a bit of pride with that.
You played 11 years in the bigs after getting drafted. Mariners, Rays, Guardians. You were an all-star, played in the World Series. What's the favorite moment that you have from your pro days?
Oh, man, that is a big question right there. I mean, like, obviously debuting is a big one. I was lucky enough to catch a no-hit, James Paxton's no-hitter in Toronto.
Nice.
So to have a pitcher do that, but there's nothing better than playoff baseball, man. That was those games were the best. 2020 was absolutely insane. Obviously with the bubble, I mean, we went all the way out to San Diego. Had a 3-game series against Toronto for the wild card. It was the first year they did a 3-game series there. Won there. Whole family had to be in a bubble. We had just had our second child. We had my daughter during COVID. She was born a week after they shut everything. No, she take that. Yeah, she would have been born on opening day, and I was blessed enough to be home, spent time with her, and then we all went back to the craziness of a 60-game sprint, and then we all went out to San Diego, and we went a tough 5-game series against the Yankees, which we had sort of bad blood with during that stretch. We played them too many times, and things were getting dicey, and then we pulled a 3-0 lead against Houston, and they worked all the way back and forced the Game 7, and we ended up winning that game to get to the World Series, and that was pretty awesome. I mean, just getting through there, winning the American League, celebrating with those guys, that was sort of the mentality we took into it. It was only a 60-game season, but it may have been one of the hardest seasons we've ever had to go through. And then doing that, and then it was just a whirlwind. I mean, we flew in like the night before Game 1 because we had to fly to Texas for the World Series, and then it was just absolute chaos. But that stretch of playoff runs in Tampa were pretty special.
The no-hitter, how much of that was you calling the game and how much of that was Paxson?
Oh man, but when you got a lefty coming from that angle throwing, 97 to 101, it makes it easy. But it was really cool because James and I, he got drafted, I believe it was the year before, maybe it was the year before, I think it was just the year before I got drafted. So we were in the minor leagues together. And we sort of went through a stretch in 2016 where I got sent down and he got sent down. And he had like a dip in velo. I wasn't swinging it well. So we both went back down to sort of, get our legs under us. And I caught him in a bullpen. And I told him, I said, man, I've caught you in, double A. I caught you in the fall league. I've caught you in triple A before this. I've caught you in the big leagues. I was playing that night, but I said, you know what, man, like I'm gonna catch your bullpen. I want to get there. Our double A pitching coach was now the triple A pitching coach. So we went down, we had familiar eyes, and he sort of just said like one thing to him to get him into a different arm slot. And I remember catching the first pitch and he probably threw it like 94, 95 in the bullpen. And I was just like, this is going to be something special. Like he figured that out. We both ended up getting called back up. And then I think it was the next year, but he just got on a stretch where it was unbelievable. So it was really cool going through that stretch with him and then seeing that come full circle. I still remember the last at bat. It was Josh Donaldson, and I'm sitting there. We got him to it was a 2-2. It was a 3-2 count. He worked at the 3-2, 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th inning in Toronto. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, do we risk throwing a slider even though he rips a slider at like 88, 90? Or do we just try to bump 100? And I was like, we got to stick with the heater.
Was that his MVP year?
and I think he won it the year. Golly, you know what? Don't quote me on it, but
it was close to it.
Whether it was the it was either the MVP year or the year after. So it was Pete Donaldson.
Sure.
And I sat there and he did it, and he got on top of this heater and sort of hit this. He hit it hard, but he hit this tricky bounce to third base, and Kyle Seager made made it look way easier than the play was. But yeah, that moment was awesome. Catching a like eye glance with him running back up to the mound. He's a Canadian, so him doing it in Toronto. It was a really cool moment with a guy that I had. We had been through that grind and sort of that struggle together in the minor leagues and trying to establish ourselves and keep footing in the big leagues. So to see someone accomplish that and be a part of it was really cool.
Sounds like you were channeling Lou Brown from Major League for that last pitch.
Yeah, you aren't kidding, man. And it was it's one of those where but what no one says though is everyone's like, don't say anything to the pitcher, but they'll sure as heck come to you and say something to the catcher. And it's like, will you just let us do our thing? But I mean, that game, I knew it was going to be something special. His bullpen was lights out. It was really cool. It was really cool to see that, and something that I still hold very near and dear because as a catcher, there's not much better than that in this game.
I got to ask, obviously your first day called up, being in the stadium, just being in a major league stadium is exhilarating. But was there ever like a stadium that you went into and you kind of felt it? I mean, you mentioned, watching the Cubs as a kid, being in Wrigley, or was it Fenway? Just one of those with all the history. Was there a particular stadium you remember more than others that you got your welcome to the big leagues feeling from?
Yes, 100%. There's 2 of them, and they're pretty obvious. Fenway, that was still pretty peak Pedroia and David Ortiz and the whole crew. But the biggest one was New York. Going to New York as a 22-year-old kid, get ready to I go up there, we get out of the top of the first. I go in the bottom of the first, and I believe it was probably Brett Gardner leading off, and then all of a sudden the announcer announces Derek Jeter, and you're just like, and then you go up there and CC Sabathia's pitching that game, and you go up there, and I end up getting a few hits, and like they were like, you want to talk about like seeing eye, like infield single, like a check swing on a check swing on a changeup that got over Robinson Cano at second. I end up getting to second base, and Derek Jeter goes, "Man, Mike, you're killing us." And I was like, I need to call time. I was like, Derek Jeter called me by my first name. I was like, no, I'm going to need a minute. But no, that was a time where, you know, I was fortunate enough to, you know, play against a lot of guys that I truly idolized. And, you know, it was pretty special to be able to compete against those guys, to be able to, you know, for a couple of years with some of them, but just sort of see what their presence was and be like I said, catching's a different animal. To be behind the plate with those guys, to be behind the plate of, you know, Miguel Cabrera and really see that the guy like never gets off balance. You're just like, he's talking to me and I'm a young kid. I'm 22, 23 years old and he's sitting there and he's like, he's just playing mind games. He's like, oh man, was that a slider? That was nasty. And I'm just like, is he baiting me into throwing this again? Or is he like, what is he trying to get out of me so he can have a better at bat? But I mean, these guys, you know, are, you know, obviously Hall of Famers, legends, guys that I grew up idolizing. So to be able to compete against those guys, you know, was something that those are the memories that I'll never forget.
Well, going back to UF, you do, as John mentioned in the intro, you do get inducted into the UF Athletics Hall of Fame a few years ago, back in 22. And you go in with some studs from other sports, right? Obviously yourself for baseball, you go in with Chandler Parsons, basketball, and then friend of our show, Jeff Demps for football.
Yeah.
What does that induction into the UF Athletics Hall of Fame mean to you?
Man, it's truly special. I mean, it's one of those things where, I mean, like I said, I mean, baseball at that point, I mean, we were trying to establish ourselves, you know, like, and it's not the most, you know, it's not the most glamorous sport, especially when you start talking about, you know, everything touted at UF with football and basketball, you know, so it's one of those things where it's like, you have some classes with these guys, everybody's schedule's crazy, you know, it's not exactly, you know, there's not so much, you know, inter sport, you know, time to hang out with guys, but you cross their paths and stuff like that, you know, but those are the guys that I grew up watching, you know, that I was a fan of. You know, we would get our one ticket to football games as an athlete. We would get our ticket to a basketball game. You know, that's what we would do as, you know, as college kids. I mean, like, we had really good programs. We wanted to see those guys play. So, you know, I go back into watching those guys play games and seeing them go in. And I'm like, they probably never cared about baseball, which doesn't matter to me. But I think there was much more of an appreciation and fandom seeing those guys go in and see what they did under the, you know, the brightest lights of UF athletics and what they really helped build that athletic program to is something that's pretty cool.
Absolutely. We're going to do something pretty special here that we've never done before. I told you about my son. He's 9.
Yeah.
When I told him that we were having a Gator baseball player on, you know, he was really excited. And he begged me to let him ask you a question. And I mean, he knows baseball history. He knows every player. He plays the show. He watches the highlights on YouTube. I said, if you're okay with it, I'm okay with it. So do you mind if he gets on real quick and just asks you a quick question?
Not at all.
Come here. All right, here he is. His name is Johnny.
Johnny, how you doing, bud?
Good. How did it feel when you got your first major league hit?
Oh man, my first major league hit, it was awesome. I still remember it. It was at home against the Colorado Rockies, and it was a single up the middle. My first at bat, I actually struck out because everyone was telling me, "Hey, you only get one first at bat ever, so you might as well let it rip 3 times." And I took that. I took that to heart. But then my second at bat, I was able. It was against Jordan Lyles. I still remember who it was against, and I singled up the middle. And that was really the moment where, you know, you feel like you made it, you know, and, you know, you can go back, you know, you go Field of Dreams and you go the guys that, you know, didn't record a hit but played in the major leagues. But that's when it truly was like, all right, I did it. I made it. Now let's go play.
Hey, Mike, real quick, what's one bit of advice that you would give to him as a very young player just starting to get into travel? You know, what's one bit of advice you would give him?
I think the biggest thing too, and I know it sounds controversial, but I still believe, especially at that age, I still believe diversity is key because I do believe that other sports teach you a lot of things and develop you in different ways that will help you. And the other thing too is in this day and age, you know, just focus on quality. There's so much where you want to go out there and do more, but these kids are playing games more and more. Take the time to work on the fundamentals and practice, and then use the games to implement those, because I think now we play more than we practice, and sometimes that gets a little bit tough to really develop.
One thing I'll add, and I don't know if you agree with this, Mike probably do, but I know my son was a catcher as well, and he caught a lot of baseball. Like you're saying, he was one of those. We tried other sports, but he always came back to baseball, and he played a lot of baseball. He caught a lot of baseball, but we were religious with his knees. We iced his knees after every game. I mean, as he got older, he was with trainers in high school, things like that. But I think it's taking care of your body and making sure you're not overusing it. I don't know. It just seemed to me that was as much as he was catching, I always wanted to really pay attention to that. And it seemed to work out because, honestly, today he has no issues.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing, and I'm fortunate, with my knees. Obviously, when you get into hips and back and all that type of stuff is what I still do preventative stuff, because I still get tight even being out, 2-3 years now. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good people out there now that, that know the body and know that there's more that goes into it than just squatting to get strong and doing stuff like this, spending time and stretching your quads, spending time and working on your hip mobility and flexibility, your glutes. There's a lot of things that catchers become dominant with that if you don't take care of them, like you said, you're going to increase risk of other muscles just because they just become a little bit more deficient because of the position that we're in catching a baseball all the time.
All right. He left. Thank you so much. I appreciate you letting him do that. He floated out of the room. He was so excited.
He was really good. I'm worried I'm going to get replaced.
All right. So what have you been up to since you hung up the cleats, Mike?
Oh, man. So like I said, I was mentioning to you a little bit earlier, we just had we just had our third child. He'll be 10 months here soon, 10 months old. But I got a 6-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 10-month-old. We live just north of Gainesville. We have some acreage, and we are getting into, sort of raising some cattle. We're doing some Highland cattle, which are the fluffy ones that people like. So my wife loved those, and we just sort of got into getting them. We're breeding them a little bit, but spending some time working on, what we call our farm. And, I'm enjoying some time being with my family after the time that I've spent away from them, and really seeing my kids, enter into the school system and, really flourish. I mean, they're getting into ages now where it's a lot of fun. They're in sports, they're in dance, they're doing school stuff. So I'm just really enjoying being a dad, being a husband when, I would have to go on the road and leave my wife with 2 kids, and, she was holding the fort down and making all this possible. Right. I'm just enjoying the time being here now, watching those. Like I said, I still take baseball. I talk to Sully quite a bit, talk to some local guys in the area with baseball. So I'm just sort of, spreading the net out wide and going to where I feel fit, and, looking to continue to build our roots here and just watch the family grow.
Do you get to go back to any games for baseball, the Gators?
We didn't go this past year. We went to a few the year before that.
When Cags was there?
When Cags was there, yeah. And I went there, spoke to the team there, but it was, I'll tell you what, I miss it mentally. Like, you miss the camaraderie, you miss the competition, but, you don't miss the grind that your body goes through. So, I mean, to go and sit on, we just take the kids out and sit on the berm and just enjoy baseball for what it is, and, watch great players, because, Sully brings in a ton of those, and just enjoy it, and, just watch it, watch my kids enjoy it, just, and do it for what it is. It's rare. It's rare. I never really got chances to watch games with my wife and be able to sit there and, really look into it and have conversations with her about it. She was always there solo. So now to be able to do that and do it as a family has been really enjoyable for us.
All right, Mike. We've taken up way too much of your time. We really appreciate it. We end the show in a bit. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Well, since we're featuring Gator Baseball this week, we're going to let you pick your Mount Rushmore of baseball movies. And I know Andy referred to one earlier, but let's see what 4 you got on your Mount Rushmore.
All right. It's going to be The Sandlot.
Oh yeah, my boys won't stop watching.
Got to
that.
start with The Sandlot.
It's going to be Field of Dreams.
Absolutely.
Oh gosh, this is a lot harder than I thought. Major League.
Of course.
Oh,
first
man.
one.
You know what I saw this week while you're thinking of your last one? After Jazz Chisholm did the home run derby, somebody cut the scene of Willie Mays Hayes in the batting cage.
Yep.
And he's doing his wild warm up, he's swinging his arms and his hips, being all cocky. And then he starts taking pictures and he's popping every one of them straight up. And they superimposed Jazz Chisholm's face on him. Oh, it was so funny.
Oh gosh, that's great. So gosh, what do I need? One more?
One more.
Gosh. I'm between two. I'm between The Natural and 42. I thought they did a really good job covering.
Good pull.
Yeah. But you can only pick one more.
Gosh. I'm going to go with The Natural because, how many guys can bust a light like that?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Mike Zunino, Florida Gator great, UF Athletics Hall of Famer, Major League All-Star, Mount Rushmore baseball movies, The Sandlot, Field of Dreams, Major League, of course, and The Natural. Mike, it's been an honor and a pleasure. We really wouldn't have wanted to kick off covering some Gator baseball greats without starting with you. So thank you so much for taking the time for us. It was an absolute honor.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely, guys. I appreciate you having me.
And he does it again. Every episode, when we're done recording, I have to hit stop, right? And we have to wait for the audio to upload to the server. It only takes a minute. It never fails. Every episode, right after I hit stop, Sid comes up with the 3 best questions of the interview.
I think it just shows you guys need to get out of my way and let me ask more questions during the show. You're just proving my point.
Oh, man. You had him talking about David Ortiz and Mike Trout. And
we got some inside heat there, huh? Inside baseball.
Yeah, we did. All right, time for our 2 bits. I'll go first. And it probably is not the most compelling part of the interview, but it's something that just sticks with me, just more sentimentally, and maybe because I'm a Yankee fan. But his first college home run against FSU at Steinbrenner Field in Tampa, which at the time was the Yankees A affiliate.
That perked my ears
Tampa
up, too,
Yankees.
when I heard Steinbrenner Field.
Yeah. So they were having some kind of tournament there with the Florida schools, and he pops his first homer against FSU. But then he talks about how he went back to visit the Rays, who are using that stadium now. And it's just, I don't know, I guess the sentimental part of him walking in that stadium and, looking at the section he hit the home run in and stuff like that. I thought that was a really cool part of the story.
Definitely.
That's it.
That's a good one.
You're working to reference his Derek Jeter reference and all his Yankee stuff. Maybe that'll probably be Sid's.
I tried to not push it there. When I was listing stadiums, I was like Fenway and Wrigley, and he went to Yankee Stadium on his own. That's obviously what I was thinking. I was trying to leave my Yankee bias out of it.
Uh-huh. All right, you want to go next, Sid, or you want me to go?
Sure, I'll take a stab at it. I got to say, I love talking baseball. We do football all the time, and, this isn't all for the Gators. And as we know, the Gators are pretty awesome in a myriad of sports, but that was actually a lot of fun talking baseball. I haven't had a good baseball conversation on or off air in a long time, and I really enjoyed that. And some of the goods were off air, not recorded. That was a good chunk of it. But
we got a lot of good stuff recorded too.
We did. We did. No, Mike was awesome. He was so generous with his time. He gave us some real inside baseball, and I could really visualize what he was describing, and that was a lot of fun. So you're absolutely right. If we're going to start with a baseball player, that this was the one to get. So now the floodgates are open, and I can't wait to make future friends of the show with some other guys off of the baseball diamond in addition to the gridiron, and maybe we'll get some hardwood on here too.
Absolutely.
That's right. He did not disappoint for sure. Hopefully he opens the door for others because it's always fun talking baseball. How can you not get sentimental about baseball?
Mr. 2 homers on Father's Day.
That's right.
Man.
That's right. Every year I get reminded of it, and every year I love it.
Was that extra special to share that with a catcher, too?
Absolutely.
Yeah, nice.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right, so mine's a little bit it's related to, him and his relationship with Sully, right? I mean, I've been following the Gators for a long time, and, I've known people that have played for him, that are playing for him now, and everybody has kind of their different opinions of him. And certainly Sully had something for Mike, right? He was recruiting him when he was at Clemson, and then obviously when he got to Florida, Mike talked about, that recruiting stayed with him. And obviously being a Gator fan growing up certainly didn't hurt his chances of coming to Florida. But, Sully saw something in Mike, certainly, that he gave Mike a lot of freedom, and that you could tell that was something that was important. He mentioned that when he was struggling earlier, or when he dislocated his finger or whatever, and he called him into his office and said, as long as you can lead this staff, you're going to play, right? Giving him that he knew he had confidence in him. And then again, letting him call his own games was something that stood out as well to Mike. And you could just tell, listening to him, that Sully certainly knew what he had with Mike. And it's cool to hear that, because it's amazing when you have a coach that believes in you, what that does for your confidence, and you go on to have an amazing college career like Mike Zunino did. So I thought that was pretty cool to how his relationship with Sully was and still is today, and how much of an impact he had on his career.
Yeah, that's a great one, Andy.
Okay, Andy wins this round.
John's early on, but eventually his son will play for some other coaches, and you'll realize there's a big difference in a good coach and a bad coach.
Yeah,
and get Johnny as Mike. I think he contributed a lot to the show. So we'll call this a third bit. Young Johnny added to the show. We'll definitely bookmark this one.
So if you had to pick our next Gator Baseball guest, who would it be?
Eckstein?
Oh, that's a good one. Andy, who you got? Eckstein, he's World Series winner, right?
Was with the Angels.
Yep.
I think it would be cool to get somebody off of one of the championship teams. The World Series, or the College World Series teams. But it'd be cool to hear that perspective and what it was like to finally win one.
Maybe that'll happen. We'll see. I'd go Brad Wilkerson. Remember him?
Good call.
Definitely
Didn't he
remember Wilkerson.
Hit and pitch?
Like Kaggs. I mean, I'd love to get Kaggs, but we're not going to. That's probably. We'll get him later on once he's got.
He's busy.
Once he
starts. We'll get him when he's getting inducted into Cooperstown. He could come to us.
Yeah, when those pro stats start racking up. But he was appointment baseball. I mean, that's probably the most Gator baseball I've ever watched, and because he was just somebody I always wanted to see what he was going to do.
Yeah, I think he's going to do great in Kansas City. They're going to be launching a lot of those waterfalls and fireworks when he hits some home runs over there. The
moonshots. Yeah.
I know you guys are Yankee fans, but Pete Alonso would be pretty cool too.
No. I don't know.
We can allow that. All
right.
He's having a hell of a career, man.
We can bring in our friend Scott to help us on that interview. He'd appreciate that.
Yeah.
That's right.
All right, the polar bear. All right, guys, not Scott. Pete Alonso. All right, guys, once again, it's been a pleasure.
Go Gators.
Go Gators.
Go Gators.